I love my mummy. I've got a table full of Kings. I've got the wking D8. I've got two wking D8 minis, and I've also got the Soundcore Motion Plus. So I've already done a review, an overview on the wking D8 mini. It's a £40 speaker. I said it's pretty good value, but I'm not saying go out, and get it while it's still on the shelves. It's an okay speaker. It's not going to knock your socks off. But in terms of, I've only got 40 quid. Is that a decent way to spend it? Yeah, it seems a reasonable way to spend it. However, not much more for £70, dollars, whatever. A little bit more than 40 quid. Gets you the Soundcore Motion Plus. Gets you the 50-watt wking D8. So £70 for a decent sounding, bass heavy, come boombox. That's good value. Something a bit more hi-fi-ish, 70 quid, about, depending on the deal. A good way to spend 70 quid, the Motion Plus. I can't say 40 quid, it's the one to get. There are a lot of speakers out there. However, it's not bad for 40 quid. But the question was, but you can get two of them for 80 quid. So then they're all about the same price. Is it a different story? And there's where I left off in my review of the wking D8 Mini. So, no surprise, I've got two of them. I'm going to answer that question, or attempt to answer that question, in this video. Just to say, they are all Bluetooth 5. They are all USB-C. Rated at 30 watts each, the wking D8 Mini. I'm not convinced. I did read somewhere it's 30 watts peak, and it's 20 watts is the real music power. However, and testing it, it seemed more like 20 watts. However, we'll see again how it compares, because definitely 30 watts. That was really loud for a 30 watt speaker, the Soundcore Motion Plus. 50 watts does seem to be a 50 watt speaker, wking D8. So 60 watts for two of them. Well, how would they compare then? Going to find out in this video. First of all, let's get this out of the way. So you've got one wking D8 Mini, or you've got 80 quid. Should I get the two? Should I get one? How much different would it be if I had two wking D8 Minis than if I just had the one? Should I upgrade from the one I've only got now at the moment? So one versus two. So I don't know how much you got from that sound clip. I have to say, in real life, for me personally, I was pleasantly surprised the difference between one of these and two of these, in the same way as I was with the Flip 5. So I'm not sure how much you got from that sound clip. I can tell you in real life, I was pleasantly surprised sticking in a second wking D8 Mini compared to how I was with only having one. When I have two of them nicely separated in stereo, and the stereo works no sweat. Pair them once and they're paired for life, it appears. None of the connection issues that I have with some of the other speakers. And even with the Soundcore, when you have them in stereo, one of them, if you have custom mode, one will play in custom, one will play in bass up mode, something. But these are playing as I would expect a stereo player to play with no real change in the sound, I have to say. Sometimes, like with JBL speakers, you turn on Connect or Party Boost, whatever it is now, changes in a little bit. It's the same, except that you get a nice soundstage. It's like a shimmering 3D-ish soundstage. It is quite nice. It did put a smile on my face. Also, going from the 2 passive radiators to 4 passive radiators, you get a significant boost in the bass, enough to feel that there's a different, that you're now getting a lot more bass weight. So it's noticeable how much, obviously it's not going to go deeper. The speaker is it's still only capable of going as deep as a single speaker goes. But when you start having more than one subwoofer or more than one pair of passive radiators, you do get a doubling up in the frequencies. So there is a nice benefit compared to the rest of the frequency range. So the boost in the bass relative to the rest of the frequency range is increased. So it's not like, oh, everything's going up by 3 decibels or what you'd expect to if you double the power. Relative to the rest of the frequency range, you're getting more bass. It's nice. There's no extra clarity, as I said, relative to the rest of the frequency range. But it's the vocals come forward. They're solid centered. And I'm just saying, look, it's not a £20,000 hi-fi. It's 2 £40 speakers. But in terms of being underwhelmed by one speaker, I was enjoying listening to a pair of them because it's the way the soundstage comes together. Not that the instruments are separated, but it's hard to explain. But there's a kind of glow to the sound that's quite shimmering, which, if that makes any sense to you, all other than to say, I like them in stereo. Maybe I'll just cut the chase and say they sound nice in stereo. So, really trying to answer 2 of these now. How should you spend about 80 quid? Is it 2 of these? Is it 1 of these? We know this is kind of hi-fi-ish. We've got aptX. We've only got SBC codecs on these others. We know this is the other one, fully IPX7, fully waterproof, that you can submerge it. But in terms of the actual sound, is there a benefit in having 2 versus 1? At 33%, so at lower volumes, this is my test.
Motion got me all faded, my heart got me going all crazy, and I won't be walking away, yeah. I'm a fool, yeah, I got love blind, and ooh, yeah, got my heart out, and it's covered in gold, like moonlight over Hollywood, and it's cool, yeah, 'cause you know it's good, oh baby.
So at these volumes, the W King D8, the full size one, it is bass heavy. As you got the volume scale, that evens out, but to me it's over bass heavy, so it's ruining some of the clarity in this speaker. So I don't particularly like listening to this at these sort of volumes. Higher up the food chain in terms of volume, that improves, and we'll get to that. But in these volumes, I do like these two in stereo. The Motion Plus is clearly the clearest. The most clarity, the most detail comes from the Motion Plus. And it probably has a little bit more actual depth in the bass than two D8 minis. However, I do like what these do in stereo. So if it's a case of either two of those or one of those, well, it would be a hard choice for me at these volumes, because it's nice having some sort of stereo image. The width you get, which you're not getting, although there's a nice spread to the sound with the Motion Plus, the way they have the tweeters, and there's no tweeters in the Mini, whereas you do still get tweeters in the full-size D8. But at these volumes, it's a choice. The clarity, the detail, the sparkle, or that kind of 3D image kind of glowing sound. It's going to be a matter of taste. But yeah, you can see how it's starting to even out things out when you've got the second one. So real world volumes more up the food chain, 66%.
Silence fades into the night. Coyotes sing at the moonlight. These open highways are calling our name, and now it's time for us to escape. Feel the wind touch our face. Let's take a spin to a foreign place. These open highways are calling our name, and now it's time for us to escape. Escape to a world we don't know. Escape into the great unknown. Escape to a world we don't know. Escape into the great unknown. Escape, let's escape. Let's escape. Let's escape.
Walking alone, the streets are empty. The only thing I can see is my own silhouette. I'm getting stronger, step by step. The clock is ticking, but there's no time for regrets. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe, trying to protect your soul. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Ready to explore right up in the sky. I need you to listen, I need you to hear, and don't show.
So a little bit different at 66%, you know, and having normalized them for actual volume differences. As as you got the volume, the frequency range does smooth out. It is more balanced with the W King D8. I do prefer it at these volumes. I don't like it at the lower volumes for that very reason. The bass is overpowering. any clarity. You may just want the bass, and you may, be very happy, as a lot of people are, with it. But it becomes clear, the extra depth in the bass that the others cannot match. No matter how many of these you have, it's not going to go deeper, but you're going to get more bass lamb. So the Soundcore Motion Plus obviously still remains the most detailed, sparkly, but sounds a little bit thin now. Sounds a teeny bit tinny compared to having two of them. But the difference in clarity is also very clear. There is a choice of clarity or a bit more body when you have two wking D8 minis. So maybe, the real deciding factor is how loud will they actually go? If it's all about, I want them to go loud, I want to fill out a room, you're going to want to know at maximum volume. And of course, I've been using these in default mode. All right, I've been using custom on my Soundcore Motion Plus because for me, it sounds that much better. But having said that, my custom settings are basically the bass up with a bit of top end lift, which it clearly needs. So it's not a massive difference if you just listened in default mode. The default mode on the wking D8 is basically, it's not really an EQ change or a change in the frequency response. It's really about, it just goes louder. It's just about having a dB boost. Whether that's to give you more control over the actual volume levels, I don't know. But EQ only really significant when you want more volume. However, EQ mode on the D8 minis is just too bright and too bass light for me. But now we go to maximum volumes where these EQ modes, are often more about just going as loud as they can by reducing some of the bass and giving it more in the mids and the highs. Going to go over all modes, 6 modes. Default mode, EQ mode, default mode, EQ mode, my custom settings, and bass up, which on the Soundcore Motion Plus is the default mode. It's the default mode that you get when you've got bass button on. That's their bass up. So, maximum volume. So loudest to quietest, D8 EQ mode, D8 mini EQ mode, Motion Plus custom mode, D8 mini default mode. D8 default mode, surprisingly, a bit lower than you may expect, only beating the Motion Plus in its default bass up mode. D8 is really all about, when you go to louder volumes, hitting that EQ mode. It basically is the louder mode rather than changing the frequency response in any major way. Minus 18.7. It's a decibel louder than two D8 minis in EQ mode. In theory, you're talking 60 watts versus 50 watts. So you could claim D8 is doing quite well. But other than the Motion Plus in bass up mode, there isn't a huge amount in terms of overall volumes. I'm using average, the total amount of power the speaker's producing across the tracks, as my measure of loudness. But if you're using peak, how loud it goes in any one absolute instant of time, even on peak 108.1, it's at least half to 1 decibel louder than the others. But of course, the big thing about the D8, the others cannot touch it in terms of bass. It does produce by far the biggest bass. In deep bass, the others are getting nowhere near it, minus 31 at 45 Hz, over 10 to 15 decibels louder than the other speakers can get anywhere near. The D8 Mini is more about, when you're using a pair, that nice stereo, not so much the image, but the kind of glow it produces is really, really nice on the ear, albeit it's not particularly hi-fi, it's not going particularly deep. It's not particularly detailed, but it does go pretty loud. Minus 19.6 overall, 106.3 peak. But there are two of them. You may have expected it to do a lot better against the Motion Plus single speaker. But using custom mode, 107.7 its peak. Only half a decibel down overall. The upper bass peaks, 155, are the same. Slightly better at the 80 Hz bass peak on the Motion Plus. But two D8 minis with 4 passive radiators, a little bit better lower down. The D8 in default mode, it's not quite as bright as in EQ mode, which is why it's an EQ mode to go louder, but it has a little bit better on the bass. So a decibel louder at the upper bass peak, same again at the 80 Hz peak, but 44 Hz, actually, even in EQ mode, those 4 passive radiators doing a little bit better than the 2 passive radiators. The Motion Plus in bass up mode, which is its default mode, isn't particularly loud, and it can't match the peaks either. But the Motion Plus is the most detailed speaker. So D8, as you would expect, or not, on any measure is the loudest, biggest bass. But two D8 minis, although I wasn't particularly overwhelmed by a single one, two of them do produce a nice shimmer and do go reasonably loud. It's holding its own against these other speakers. I have to say, those results suggest to me that actually this really is more like a 20 watt speaker than a 30 watt speaker, because it's doing what I would expect at 20 watts. So we've got 30 watts, 50 watts. Two of these at 20 watts would be 40 watts, which would place it in between these two, and that's where we seem to be in terms of loudness. So, I mean, the Motion Plus does really well for a single 30 watt speaker, but it does seem two of these in stereo become more like what you'd expect from about 40 watts, and then you've got your 50 watts and 30 watts. So I would say that's not really 30 watts, but however, the point being, it can go pretty loud, can go certainly louder than the Motion Plus, and certainly than it would do in its default mode. Clearly the loudest, and the only one with significant bass weight at these volumes, the wking D8 Daddy, if this is the mini, the big one, the hefty one. But still, although I don't like the form factor on these, and that's why I really like the Flip 5 as a pair, because it's I haven't got it with me. I should have had a bit of foresight and stuck it on the table. However, it's a little speaker, it's rubberized, it's a really nice travel size, and you get a pair of those, they sound pretty decent for a little thing. Whereas these are still clunky, not that rugged. I wouldn't like to bash that about or stick it in a rucksack and chuck the rucksack somewhere. So I wouldn't say it was so but if it's just to have it at home or on a shelf or wherever you're going to stick them, and they're just going to be separated like that, then it becomes a question of how much you value stereo. There are clear differences. It's never going to match the clarity of the Motion Plus, but it can sound like it has more body. There is a nice shimmer to it, but it's more about upper bass than having any significant bass, lower down with this speaker. But I would say, if you're never going to get past an £80 budget, so it's a one-time only thing, yeah, maybe 2 of the Minis D8s you'd get more enjoyment out of. But if you're going to have any type of analytical listening, if you want to get any sort of detail, you're going to go for the Motion Plus. And if you just want some significant bass slam, some booming music, it's going to be the full-size wking D8. But again, not very travel friendly. So I hope you got something out of this video, and I thank you for watching.
UK